Hey everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. I am J.R. Stays, and joining me on the line is
Fletcher Sharpe.
Good to talk to you, man.
Of course.
So we're going to talk some sports, but first we're going to get into kind of a combination of sports and development story. Over the weekend, Axios first reported, followed up by the Detroit Free Press, more details about this possible deal for these parking lots outside of Comerica Park. Now, if you've been to the ballpark, you know there are parking lots between Comerica and Woodward. Well, those are owned by a stadium authority, runs through Wayne County, that was set up as part of the public-private partnership to get that stadium built, because obviously a bunch of public dollars went into it. This is a merge of different things. It becomes more important now because, I've been openly wondering on the show, and you've heard me say this, Fletcher, about the District Detroit project. This phase of the District Detroit project really is going to kick off with this new building they want to build. But the thing is that they don't own the land where they want to build this building. So now there are negotiations that have drug on about the price, what people want for this property. An appraisal came through, and they were saying that it's worth about $35 million for a few of those lots out front there in order to do this. The Olympia Development wants to buy it from the county. The county is in no rush to sell it to them because they like the deal that's going on currently where they get parking lot revenue. Because let's remember, although a lot of people do not like the surface lots of parking in Detroit, they're extremely profitable. And that's one of those kind of scourges of development in the city, and that so many places where you'd think you'd have businesses or buildings or restaurants or bars, they're just parking lots at this point. Anyway, we're learning more that the county in this reporting, and credit to Axios for this, isn't so interested in selling. They don't feel like they're motivated to sell. The Olympia Development really wants to get a hold of those properties to get started. They already have approval from City Council and others to do this. At first, I was wondering why they were doing this, and now, and this is just my personal speculation, it feels like doing this first is part of a ploy to get those properties in control so they can do something with them, as opposed to building on their things first. This is one where I'm kind of torn, Fletcher, because do I necessarily think Olympia has the best track record? No. But also, do I not like surface parking lots and the understanding that Wayne County is in the way of doing some of this development if it were actually going to happen? Open question. No. And at the end of the day, what Olympia wants to do is have the stadium authority redirect some of the money that they are paying in for these lots into paying for improvements to Comerica Park, which you can debate whether or not it needs upgrades. So Fletcher, what say you? Maybe we start with Comerica Park first, and thoughts on upgrades.
It's still a really great park. When it first was built, they needed it to be one of the better parks in the league, in my opinion, because at the time it was built, the Tigers were terrible. So of course, when they're getting shelled, you want to maybe go on a Ferris wheel and maybe get one of those mile-long iced teas that make you forget where your wallet is. But probably could use a few upgrades. The thing this is just me as a personal thing. And again, this agreement is, I don't want to say funny money, but it's all not real until it's real. I don't like when people agree to something in theory, and then when it comes to play out, are actually, let's divert this to something else because I understand looking before you leap is a human thing, but no. No, you don't get to look before you leap when the number is above $1 billion. At that point, you should look many, many times before you leap, because otherwise all your indecisiveness and you're deciding you want to do something, one, it can ruin the whole deal entirely, which would be bad for not just the two parties, but a lot more people involved.
Well, it's not a good look, especially considering that the Ilitch family is supposed to pay for upgrades for the stadium over time. And it feels like they're hard negotiating for another deal, which is basically their general track record, if you ask me. At every turn, it's never, we're going to just do this. It's what other bonus we can do, what other little few bucks we can get here or there to pay for things, as opposed to, hey, we're just going to go up and do it.
I mean, part of people being ungodly rich where they could potentially make a full, what's the size of bed bigger than a king size bed?
California King, I think.
Yeah. If they can make a full size California King bed of $100 bills and still be able to wipe their butts with the rest of the money they have, and just forever. Every single person who got that way because when it was time to spend $45, they found a way to chip in 5 or 10 and get everyone else kicking the other 35, and just kept doing that and doing that. So of course, in the Ilitches, they've done it in many very obvious ways, to the point where when they were we're going to have some upgrades for Comerica, and they didn't list exactly how or any sort of finances, people were hey, we don't like that. You need to Tell us where this money's coming from.
And apparently they want the money to come from the county.
This is one of the few times where like I'm going to sound like a fan. It's one of the few times, and people can mark this down November 7th. I don't want money I give to taxes to go to build that stadium. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't want anything that I'm giving to the state, to the county, to the government to then be taken and then put, it's like, oh, see this? You built 1/18th of a seat. No, thank you. I don't know. Put that towards what it could go towards, or better yet, if it's going to go towards what it typically does, just let it sit there. Like, don't. No, I don't want to renovate Comerica Park with county money that's probably going to come from tax. I don't want to do that. And I know that's a thing that a lot of, as you've mentioned, with other people building stadiums around, I know it's a thing that people do, and I understand why sometimes it has to happen. This is not one of those times. The Illiches are supremely rich. Again, to the point to where like it's startling when you add up net worth and such. But they always find a way to weasel out of paying the full amount just because it's like, well, we can move this here and move this here. So to a degree, I appreciate the county being like, no, but also like figure something out because, again, this is not just affecting you two, but a bunch of other people. And for the record, I will add, I also don't like surface parking. Downtown, you see pictures of it in the 30s and 40s, and I know that there's some more people since then. Like, it looked like a big, vibrant capital of a metropolitan area type thing. And, like, now I was in my father's building, and I looked down, and, like, you just see a bunch of parking lots and, like, a billboard. And I'm like, this is actually really sad. Hate to say it. You don't see this in Chicago or, like, New York or even Boston. Like, you look down, you see maybe a few parking lots for sure, but you see things. And you look down in Detroit, it's like, okay, parking lot, pedal pub, ew, parking lot, billboard, all right, parking lot. And it's like, there's still no parking. Why is there still, and the reason why is because people are like, here's $30 to park here for an event. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to see anyone that much. So like, just, I don't want to see more surface parking, but I don't want the Illiches to be able to manipulate another deal to their advancement. Like, that's not something I'm okay with.
So it's kind of complicated because all your points are totally valid, and this is the kind of thing where would that money they pay to the county go to other things or would it go towards the stadium? And then those other things are still going to need to be paid for. So even though it's indirect, I totally hear your point there because one way or another, a lot of county service and things need to be paid for. So I hear what you're saying. This feels like it's starting to get negotiated in public, which is an interesting sign because this has dragged on for a long time now, longer than it should have if they were close to a deal. And it going into the public like this tells me there's a sign that people want to try to either expedite this or draw a line in the sand to say no. What's also difficult, though, is that I know a lot of our listeners are in the minority, but it feels like at the end of the day, these public stadium projects always end up passing. They even dangle the possibility of the Tigers leaving in like 10 years of like, we want to keep a good relationship with the Tigers so that they stay longer than at least the next 10 years. And it's like, what on earth are we talking about here? Like, are we even going to have the discussion of like, oh, the Tigers are going to leave downtown? Like, what kind of civic crap is this? Like, it's like, oh, we're going to do all these good works. And then, oh, we're also going to talk about like, oh, we want to have a good relationship in case they leave. Has that been on the table? Because if it is, real shame on the ownership if that was the case. And they should directly address that.
It's one of those memes you see where someone's like, I'm all for peace as long as it doesn't inconvenience me. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. Right? It doesn't mean anything at all. All that means is like you care about yourself, which negates your entire statement. So you're like, we want to do all the stuff we can do for the city. But if you don't give us what we want, we will take this team. Like, all right, man. Like, clearly you don't care. It's about looping stuff back in for yourself. In a way, like, I have to like preface that I'm not saying that this is like, I agree with it, but like, it's a smart plan. It's a way to make sure you don't have to pay the full amount of stuff. If you can find a way to pay $5 when everyone else is paying $10, eventually you can work yourself from 5 to 4. They can go from 10 to 11, and eventually you're paying $1 and they're all paying whatever the number, I can't count, but you know what I'm saying. I get how the leverage they have like allows them to be able to like say, oh, if you don't do this, we'll do this. But after a while, the county's got to be like, all right, you're going to take him out of the city, out of the state, whatever, man. Find a city who wants to build a stadium and we'll actually fund it. Find a county who wants to do that and goodbye. And I guarantee you, Oakland, Washtenaw, they do not want to, they'll be like, no, thank you. Stay in Wayne, please. We'll come visit you. We do not want to pay for this. And can you imagine the Tigers anywhere else than downtown Detroit at this point right now?
You look at the Pistons, and the Palace of Auburn Hills was built with Davidson's own money for a reason, because he couldn't get a handout.
Well, that's because Bill Davidson's a real goon. Like, rest in peace to that guy. Like, I've never loved an old white man the way I love Bill Davidson. Truly. He wasn't just someone who's like, I have a basketball team and a women's team and like, he's like, hey, you guys are in the playoffs. I'm there. Like, not just because like Bill Davidson was at Detroit shot games, like in the early rounds of the playoffs, the away games. And he was old, not like, oh, like he was old. And he's like, I will go to Phoenix. I will go to Chicago. I will go because I care. And like, that's a guy I'm not just here for the last game to pick up the trophy. I'm here to watch, and I'm here to support this team and do what I need to do to win. I love that. So to hear that he built the Palace with his own money, like, you'll never see someone like that again today. Like, that's just not gonna happen. If we could reanimate him and like somehow put him in the spirit of, like, I don't know, like a tabby cat or something, like, please, 100% would be for it. I don't know what his name, I guess it'd still be Bill or something, but like someone like that today, in a way, I hate to say this, but like a dinosaur, because they're not coming back like that. People now, if they can build, because of course costs have gone up, but if people can build stuff, they're going to make sure they can try to get some money from other people so they don't have to fund all of it.
Fletcher, I know you that you like to follow the Pistons a lot. The record has not been great, but it has been fun to watch.
Yeah, they're 2-5. They're fun to watch, but they're not really, gelling all the way yet. But I'm not really that worried, because of their 5 losses, only one's a bad loss, and it's the one to the Trailblazers, because they were up by like 18, 20 points and found a way to lose that game. But like, they lost to the Miami Heat by 1 point. Opening night. The Heat were in the NBA championship last year. They lost to the Thunder, who are also a young team led by a dynamic point guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who led the Canadian team to a bronze medal over the U.S. this past summer. They lost to the Pelicans, perennial at this point playoff team. They lost to the Suns, and Kevin Durant, who's like definitely a Hall of Famer, scored 40 points. So like, obviously, yes, like when star players have star nights against the young team, they're probably going to win. The only loss that's concerning to me is the one against the Trailblazers, because the Trailblazers traded away Damian Lillard, kind of sputtering around a little bit, and they were up by like 15, 20 points before they lost their first-round draft picks, Scoot Henderson, who has not been playing great this season. And somehow the Trailblazers dug deep. Of course, former Piston, Chauncey Billups, is their head coach. They probably wanted to win it for him. It's his first time really back in Detroit. I know last year was last year, but this is the first time people were actually there to watch. So yeah, I'm not really that disappointed yet. I'm not pushing the light. I know they have the Bucks and they have the 76ers, so those are going to be 2 tough games. They also have the Bulls coming up, which they should win. And, after that, Hawks, Cavaliers, Raptors, Nuggets. So yeah, I'm not expecting them to play that great to start, but when they get into the part of the season where it's like the Wizards and like the Knicks and the pace, that's when I expect you to start getting those wins. If you can get the wins there and like figure it out against the really tough teams, lose by not that, I can live with that. But if you're getting blown out by like the Wizards and the Spurs, who are young, although they still have a good player, Victor Wembanyama, young team led by one guy, but still young. If you're losing to teams like that, the Magic, that's when I'm like, all right, what's wrong? This is not good. This is bad.
So is this a transition year for us? And you're good with that?
Most likely, yes. There's a chance they could still make, a lower seed in the playoffs. I mean, especially now that they expanded it to play-in games, which is like, I think now 10 teams, which a little ridiculous, but whatever. I think they could end up being one of the top 10 teams in the East. Do I think they're going to win a title? No. If you put down like $5 for them to win the title, I'm sure you'll get back like $4 million, which why not?
It's good to see the team in the mix, and I think that's all that we can really look for this year. Another team that's in the mix is the Detroit Red Wings. I watched that Bruins game the other night. I really liked what I saw, and I have not watched a ton of hockey lately, but that was fun. Like, Alex DeBrincat knows what he's doing. That was a good thing. And then I look up and it's like, oh man, they're like second in the Atlantic Conference, which again, super early, but I was really expecting not the same finish, right? Like, this is a strong start.
Kind of like with the Pistons, like the Red Wings are also a younger team. And unlike the Pistons in this regard, they're flourishing early. DeBrincat has 9 goals in the season. They said that he's going to come in here and score goals. He had some other issues off the ice, which were not affecting his play. And it shows. He's in there banging goals, and he's currently in the top 5 for goals scored. Dylan Larkin, still young, stepping into the role that you need the guy with the C on his jersey to do. 17 points in the season, 5 goals, 12 assists, puts him in the top 5. Their goalkeeper, the record is at 2-2, which is not great. but top 5 in save percentage, top 5 in goals against, which just means that he's doing his job. It's up to the rest of the team to do theirs. If your keeper's doing their job, you should be okay going forward. And yeah, the Bruins game, they won 4-5. That's a little concerning to give up 4 goals, but also the Bruins hadn't lost the season yet. So for you to go in there and get a win like that means when it comes down to crunch time, obviously, again, early part of the season, later, we'll revisit it later in the season, but early part of the season, it shows like you guys have the gumption. You guys can pay attention and take care of it when it needs to happen and turn it on when you need to turn it on, which is good. Because, again, young teams, that's something they typically struggle with. Pistons have struggled with it a little bit in certain games. A good example of a young team that, did not struggle at all and kind of turned it around. The old Oklahoma City Thunder that had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. People were like, they're a young team. They won't be able to figure it out. And I'm like, they're going to make the playoffs next year. And I was wrong. They made the playoffs that year and then the next year because they figured out early on when we need to put the killer instinct in and knock teams out and go there and just get these goals and whatever, they figured it out and did it. So the Red Wings are doing that right now. I know hockey's a very long season. I know those hits add up a little bit, but it's good to see that they're playing and they look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
And I was trying to leave my father's workspace over the weekend and I couldn't because there was a Red Wings tailgate. There are people outside drinking, having fun in one of the mini parking lots downtown. And it's like, all right, I can't go. What happens? Red Wings play tonight. It's like, oh, haven't seen people go outside in the cold for this in quite some time. That's crazy. But you know what? Good for them. And again, with the Pistons, if people are excited about the team, whether they're good or not, people will show up. There've been some famous people who've gone to Pistons games already. Same with the Lions. Now I'm sure the Red Wings have theirs as well. I haven't scanned the crowd yet. All that means to me is that people are excited about this. And I love that. Even if every single team that plays downtown decides to just say, you know what, let's crap the bed the rest of the season, which hopefully, knock on something wooden around me, they don't. But it shows that people care. And the caring part is what a lot of teams struggle to do. There are some really great teams in all sports in this country that people don't care about. The Michigan Bucks, before they became the Flint City Bucks, were an amazing institution, had sent a kid to the MLS draft every year from their team. And they averaged about 150 fans a game. No one cared. But if you get people to care and then you can give them a good product, people will come back and bring more fans. The Pistons, back when they were churning out season after season after season of sellouts, it wasn't the fact that they were good, although it helped. It's the fact that people cared that they were good and were able to build off that and build off that. And even the games where they lost or something, they were still exciting, which is why I'm not worried about the Pistons. It's why I'm a bit excited about the Red Wings. It's why I'm a bit excited about the Lions as well, because the games, you got little kids talking about moments in the games and talking about what's happening going forward. And that's how you keep the interest going through generations, through areas of the city, through areas of the region, because you have a bunch of people that care. And it's a cyclical type of thing where it's grandpa, dad, son, grandpa, dad, daughter, grandma, mom, son. It's just a chain that keeps going. And as long as you can keep doing that, you'll always have stadiums full. And yeah, I'm excited for it's not April in the D, but you know what I'm saying.
Fletcher Sharpe, so good to talk to you, man.
Of course, thanks for having me.
At Saint FDW on all the things. Be sure to check him out. And as I've said, 313-789-3211. Leave us a voicemail for the show or dailydetroit@gmail.com with your feedback. Thank you so much for listening. I am Jer Stays. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.